So I'm going to begin by talking about apostasy, just a bit more generally, what we know about it. And then I will go on and speak about some of the ways that we can move forward and the ways that we can create more harmony between communities that are affected by apostasy. So apostasy is when a person leaves their religion or changes their faith. They may go from one religion into another, they may leave it for no religion at all. In many parts of the world, this is considered to be a normal thing, it's a human right, people do it, and it's not so much of a big deal. Depending on what religion you come from, depending on where you live in the world, depending on your social status, your individual status, depending on whether you're a woman, the way that you are treated and perceived can be different. So at Faith to Faithless, we work with people who leave all different kinds of religions. We don't just focus on one religion, because we understand that people who leave different faiths, including Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and also depending on the group or the sect or the denomination they're a part of, that can affect how they are perceived and treated by their own communities. So at Faith to Faithless, we primarily work with people who leave high control religions. And what we mean by high control religions are religions which exert a certain level of control over their members. And one of the defining characteristics of these high control religions is that people who leave that religion may not leave, are not allowed to leave with their dignity. Sometimes they're not allowed to leave completely safe. They may be experiencing some kind of abuse. So in terms of my own self and the reason why I got involved in this work, and I want to speak from personal experience, because sometimes I think it's easier to understand what people are going through that personal experience. So I was raised in a traditional Pakistani background, grew up in Britain, went to an Islamic boarding school, which wasn't so normal. My upbringing was quite normal. My parents are, they are religious, but they're traditional. And when I was sent to the Islamic school, the school itself, and I think anybody who comes from a Muslim background understands that there are lots of different interpretations and different ways to practice Islam. So the way that my parents practiced Islam was different to the way that the school taught Islam to me. And when I as a sort of teenage girl, I had doubts from a very young age, just very normal doubts that people might experience, whatever your religious background, questions like, who made God? And do we really have free will? Just the kind of normal questions that some people ask when they're doubtful or when they're skeptical. But for me, as a young girl from a Muslim background in an Islamic boarding school, asking those questions wasn't seen as critical thinking, it wasn't seen as a good thing. I was seen as naughty and sinful and told that I was influencing other children around me in a negative way. So I started to experience what I called anti-apostate stigma from quite a young age. So because I'm somebody who may go on to doubt or may go on to question or leave my faith, then I was seen to be seen in these sort of stereotypical ways. And when I finally left the faith at the age of 19, I experienced a lot of backlash from people around me. So the first people that found out were my family. And my family, like many people, perhaps not so much in the last 5 or 10 years where there's been a shift, but when I left Islam it was over 10 years ago. They had never come across anybody in their life who had left Islam. Because most people who grow up in Muslim communities don't really have, apart from my niece, don't really have an auntie who left Islam, or who did leave Islam or maybe questioned Islam, but this person is no longer part of the community. Those relationships may break down. And so often people don't have anyone around them, or people don't have family around them, or representatives or people in the community that have left a faith and are still respected, are still valued members of their community, irrespective of what they believe in. Now, I did say that I would focus on Islam, but it's important to note that people who leave Hasidic Jewish backgrounds, people who leave high control aspects, certain groups of Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, they can also experience very similar stigma, pushback, reactions, sometimes abuse from within their communities. So just to give you at least one example outside of Islam, the Jehovah's Witnesses are a group that consider themselves to be in some ways of Christianity, and I'm sure my friend here would be able to explain that better than me. Some Christians don't consider them to be Christians, but let's not worry about that so much. When you are part of the Jehovah's Witness religion, you cannot leave it. I mean, you can, but if you leave it, the implications are huge. So Jehovah's Witnesses grow up in societies and in communities where they are not allowed to associate with other religions. They may speak to them at school, they may go to work with them, but to have a close, intimate relationship, like a friendship or a kinship or a relationship, it must be within that Jehovah's Witness world. But when you now doubt the faith or you question the faith, as is your right, you are a human being, you may do that, then you are told that you are not allowed to associate or speak to any person, any Jehovah's Witness in your congregation. This means you lose all of your friends, your family, everybody around you will have to stop communicating with you. If they do not stop communicating with you, they may themselves face ostracism. So this kind of way of trying to keep people within the faith, cruel to be kind, some people would say, has a huge damaging impact. So at Faith to Faithless, we do work with people who have left Jehovah's Witness faith, and many of them can experience depression, anxiety. The impact on their mental health can be huge, and ex-Muslims and people who from other different religious groups share this, that when they leave their faith, for some people, losing their faith may mean that they may feel empty, they might feel like they don't have a purpose in life. They go through a phase of sort of trying to figure out what their purpose is. That period may also come with it, some sadness and difficulty. But they tend to come out of that once they've had some time to think and reflect. The most difficult aspect of it is actually their relationship and how they may feel about people around them and what their family may think of them. Whether their family will think they're sinful, will think they're bad. One of my anxieties and fears when my family found out is that I wouldn't be allowed to have a relationship with my younger siblings. I told a very careful lie. The careful line for me was I never, ever engaged my little siblings and talk about religion, because I was so terrified that if I went to that degree or even said anything that could influence them wrongly, I would lose that relationship. And I'm quite fortunate in that although my relationship with my family broke down, and I would say it broke down for about 5 years, we've been able to repair it. I have a lovely relationship with my mum. She's very religious and devout. I think she'll always want me to come back to Islam, and I understand and I appreciate that. But then she also understands and can see me for me, and not just for the fact that I left my religion. But I think sometimes for people it's so shocking, they don't understand what it means. As parents, sometimes parents can get so scared that if my child leaves this religion, one, it's my fault as a parent, and two, they're going to go to hell. How do I stop that? And three, how are people in the community or my friends and family going to see me as a parent, and will they see me as a failure? And so what is happening is that a lot of people who leave their faith, and a lot of people who are connected to them, whether that's their friends or family, can often be dealing with cycles of shame and feelings of guilt and embarrassment. And that's why we say that people who leave a religion face a form of prejudice. It's the way that you have homophobia or any form of racism in society. A person who leaves a religion, not just by people within religious communities, but also out of religious communities, also people who may be non-religious, may hold stereotypical views about people who have left religion. They just have an axe to grind on society, on religion. They want to destroy religion. They're stupid, they're insane, they're sick. They just want to go out there and do bad things and be sinful and do drugs and be out in the world doing these things. We hope that with time, with greater understanding, these will shift, but that's currently what we see and where we stand at. So those are the impacts on individuals who have left their faith. Often it's the kind of mental health deterioration, the personal conflict, not knowing where they stand, not knowing what their identity is, feeling scared to tell people. But then there's also the abuse that can take place. Physical abuse, emotional abuse that can take place. So for example, we have dealt with situations where people have been physically attacked by their family for questioning their religion. I've been physically attacked for questioning my religion, so I speak from personal experience that physical abuse happens. Often apostates get told that it's just their dysfunctional families, it's just their dysfunctional communities, but actually this happens. It's widespread. It's not just within one social class, it's not just within one certain type of nationality or ethnicity, but often it's hidden. So if you're interested, I would recommend an article written by, or a published piece of work now by Hari Perach, who wrote on the hidden abuse of apostates, the hidden group of apostates within abuse. So domestic violence and abuse, there are a group of victims within that circle who are actually apostates. So apostates can face physical violence, and they can be forced out of their homes, and they can be threatened. Often threat is very important. Sometimes I get told, but someone hasn't really been killed in the UK for it. The threat is terrifying. The threat changes people's behavior. People will start complying when they're threatened. So often you might not see the whole, and actually there was a case recently of two British men who put together a plan to kill one of their family members who had travelled to, I believe, Slovakia to work for Leaving Islam. That's quite a recent case. So this is something that we believe has been happening for a long time. It's that we haven't had the language for it. People haven't been talking about it. And also it's been framed as a religious conversation. Religious conversation in the sense of, well, it's about religion reforming or about coming onto a certain interpretation, or my religion doesn't have this interpretation. And often the debates that I've seen on BBC and so forth are very theological. At Faith to Faithless, we try to take it more down a social and political and legal sort of route, try and see it through these through these lenses. We feel like it's more helpful in some ways. Because with religious interpretation, religious interpretation is quite slow burning. To influence lots of individuals to come onto a certain religious interpretation and then to put action into place is such a long process. It's not one that we can wait for. But there are social solutions, political solutions, legal solutions, and I believe with time, social communities will also be able to come to terms with the stigma and the prejudice, and will also be willing to move forward. So that's a kind of overview of the general impact of apostasy on people's lives. But I would say that Islam tends to get a lot more coverage in the media. It tends to be more hot conversation when it comes to apostasy. And the question is why? Well, for me, the answer is because Islam as a religion is not much different to other religions that may exhibit prejudices towards apostates. However, the main difference is that we have in place in around 18 countries in the world actual laws that criminalize apostasy. And so the difference is political and legal. The political and legal difference is important. And so you may leave the Jehovah's Witness faith and you will face stigma, a lot of social stigma, and it will cause a huge impact on your life. And I will never say that that's not important. But the impact on it in terms of the legal impact, where you may be threatened with death, and I think the last execution of an apostate was 1994 or 1996. However, what we don't know is how many apostates have been told that they have 3 days to repent, like in Iran. There's a legal system in some parts of Iran where they're given 3 days to repent. We don't have access to those statistics. We don't know how many Muslims have left their faith, or not just left their faith, may have gone and chosen a different interpretation of Islam. And so for me, this is not an atheist issue or a Christian issue, although often ex-Muslims might go into those religions. This is actually about the human rights of Muslims in countries that criminalize apostasy and criminalize their ability to have freedom of faith, freedom of speech, to the extent that they cannot even challenge the state's application of Sharia. That for me is a major issue. So just in the last bit before I finish off, how do we move forward? The first thing I would say is that, of course, education. Like every type of prejudice that exists in the world, a prejudice against apostates is no different. Education, raising awareness, having that conversation at a wider level where we can actually not just take religion into account, but take into account the psychological impact, the social impact, and have that broader conversation. Education is so important. Taking an interest, as all of you are here, taking an interest is hugely important. As part of education, Faith to Faithless offers, at the moment, free training, safeguarding training for organizations, where we support people who may come into contact with vulnerable people, such as social workers, doctors, lawyers, the police. We have trained the police as well on how to identify where people might be experiencing abuse and how to actually action it in a better way. If you are part of an organization and you would like that training at the moment, as I said, it is free. We would be happy to provide it. Please come and talk to me. But we also need stronger action from governments such as Britain, America, although they're questionable at the moment, in my opinion. But these governments, they are interacting with countries like Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia, like Iran. They have the ability and the strength and the political power to be able to say, actually, we don't agree with the fact that Muslims in only Muslims in your countries are not allowed to question the state's application of Sharia or to question Islam at all. So we need more governmental action. And I would say the last thing really is, of course, communities can help. I do think that there's been a burden on communities in terms of only the community needs to do something. The community has to look at Islam and sort things out. I think the community is only one piece of the action. I think the community are often just trying to get along and trying to get by, and this is more about family dynamics within communities. I think as time goes on, yes, if you are within the Muslim community and you think there's some way for you to support, whether that is to try and have a talk at your local mosque, or to try and invite people like myself who have nothing but respect for Muslim communities, but also would like to find a way for us to build a bridge and strike a balance on this issue, I think that is something we can do as well.